Welcome to Just Relationships, the show that offers you concrete ways to make your relationships better. Whether it's your boss, your spouse, your children, or your friends, the quality of your relationships in life directly affects how you feel about yourself and the success you achieve. Your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer, a psychotherapist, telecoach, author, and seminar leader, will interview top experts to help you learn to manage this essential part of your life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer.
Greetings to you. Well, we are in the midst of great change in our society, and we obviously need excellent leaders. And I couldn't think of a more timely show for us on Just Relationships. And I am absolutely delighted to have as my guest Carol Ritz. She is a certified speaking professional, otherwise known as CSP, specializing in leadership and change. And Carol goes around the country sharing what leadership and change is all about and how we can have healthy, viable leadership that helps us with this difficult task of change, because change is always problematic in that, and you tell me what you think, Carol, that it also always involves loss. And the only way to have the change work in a positive way is to remember that while there are definite losses, we're not lying about that. There are also gains. There are also reasons, if it is a rational, positive, reasoned change. Right. How am I doing, Carol Ritz?
That's it. I mean, there's always opportunities. Thank you, Duffy. This is great to be with you.
Great to be with you. And I want everyone to know that Carol and I are friends of, my goodness, is it, 35, 40 years. We met at the National Speakers Association, and we were roomies ever since, going to all the conferences, being together. So I thought, boy, Carol Ritz would be the best person to talk about this. So I like how you put that, Carol. Change equals opportunities, which reminds me of the Chinese symbols, the double symbols for crisis, the danger and the opportunity.
Right.
Yes.
Well, one thing we've learned as we look at the essence of change is that just as no one is immune to this virus, we're not immune to change. Right. And we all have a pre-existing condition. We were born with it. And that is, we do not respond well to unwelcome change.
That's a threat. That puts us right away into fight, flight, or freeze, right?
Exactly. Yes. My interest in change began back in the 70s. I was teaching in an economically deprived area in Ohio, and our school district received state and federal funding to help make the curriculum more life-related, to help motivate the children, because they knew they were learning the 3 R's, but they didn't know how it was ever going to be used in their life. Many of them did not have a working member of the family.
Yeah.
So I got excited about it when I thought, gee, this is going to mean field trips to take the children to see, hospital workers, invite salesmen into our classroom when the children are selling, candy, to learn some of the skills. I got excited. And they asked me if I would work 1 day a week on that project. Well, that's when I learned that some teachers stopped talking to me.
Oh, my word.
I went from being likable and popular to people leaving when I walked in the room. Because this was a dramatic change in education. Teachers were being evaluated on how they covered the pages in the math book, in the reading book.
Right.
And what I was talking about was taking students on field trips, of inviting the community into the classroom so that what they were learning was more life-related. And the teacher's like, I don't have time for that. Go away.
So the whole idea of experiential relevant education was something that they eschewed because it was too much extra thought, perhaps.
Well, that's not what they were being evaluated on. People do what they're being evaluated on. Until you put that in the evaluation program, they're gonna do what they think is, going to get them that A+. So I ended up moving with that program to the Department of Education in Columbus. And I was now in a position where I was trying to present this motivation to education around the state. And because Ohio State University was right up the street from my office, I thought, well, now I have something that I can study, get my master's in. And I met a wonderful, wonderful professor. He said, okay, Carol, Ohio State does not offer a master's in change process. We're talking 1979.
Yeah.
And he said, all I can do is go through the catalog and point out professors for you to experience. And then I will put together your questions for your master thesis.
Wow.
So this is when I started learning. And that is, keep in mind, there's 3 kinds of change. One, we adapt to well. It's called structural change. That is, there comes a time we need reading glasses. Now, we may not want to read reading glasses, but we adjust to it. And there's a time we need to paint our house because the structure is starting to take some wear and tear. Mm-hmm. This we adapt to well. The second kind we adapt to well also. It's called cyclical change. Picture the seasons of the year. It happens every year. It's not a shock. If you live in the north, in fact, in 2 weeks, you may see some snow. Some will love it, some won't. But it doesn't upset you because it's cyclical. Now, here comes the third one. It's called random change.
Yes.
You are blindsided. It is unpredictable. You have no preparation. And within random, there's 2 of them. One's called welcome. That's when you hear a new baby's coming into your life. Wow, you didn't think that was going to happen, but that's a welcome change.
Yeah.
I can't wait to go out shopping. And then we have the unwelcome change, which is exactly where we are right now. We have a random, unexpected, unwelcome change. We did not see this coming around the corner. In fact, I have to laugh because if you remember on New Year's Eve, 2020, a lot of people were joking about 2020. We can see clearly now.
I know the vision. I wrote all about it on Facebook. I thought I was so clever.
Yeah. We have perfect vision. It's 2020. Well, we had it for January and we had it for February. Mm-hmm. But then a strange new world hit us.
Yes.
That we just didn't see. And as you say, what happened next? All our focus was on loss. I can't go to the graduation party. I can't go to the wedding. I can't take a cruise. I can't go to Europe. Poor me. But could we vent the loss? Not so much without feeling guilty because we knew people were suffering. How dare me vent about my loss of my trip when there are people whose families are suffering?
Good point.
Yeah. So now we got a double whammy. We're feeling loss, but we're ashamed to talk about it. And then we go into denial. Some of us, just to get through the day, we deny reality. You heard people say, do you believe this? I don't believe this.
I
don't
know
believe what I see on TV. People literally went into denial.
Right. And those numbers may mean nothing to people on TV because they don't know anyone personally who has COVID. Their lives seem the same. But so a lot of people say, oh, those numbers are lies. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's called denial. Yes. That's my only healthy way to get through this loss that I can't really talk about is just deny it.
Yeah.
And I think it was Winston Churchill says that, when you're going through hell, keep going.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when you're going through change, don't give up.
Right.
Don't give up. Because finally we realize our reaction to this change is going to make all the difference. And we can choose that reaction. The people who handle unwelcome change the best are the people that have the ability to look inward.
Oh, yep.
If we only look outward, all we see is what change did to us.
Right.
And we're blaming the change. We're blaming others. We're blaming the situation. But for the people, and many of us have learned this, who could have the ability to look inward, they go into meditation. They go into music. They go into thinking of the people who have influenced them in their life so that they can say, it's best I choose my reaction to this because I know I can't control it.
Right.
I don't even know how well I can influence it.
Right.
And I'm just going to have to, let go of this helpless feeling and have faith in the positive.
Okay, let's stay with that for a moment. Okay, so let go of the helpless feeling. You know that the root cause of all stress, no matter what it is, loss of car keys or even a loss of car, which I've lost cars in malls, that helpless feeling is god awful. That's the nature of stress. So when you say let go of helpless feeling, tell me more about that.
You have to take a look at, analyze it. I mean, let's say, may not be the best example, but let's say in the situation with an election, you have an election coming up and you say, okay, what do I have under my control? Mm-hmm. And you know what you have under your control. You can go vote.
Yes.
You can read up, you can analyze things, you can look at your values and you can go vote. You can control that. What is it that you can influence? Well, I can influence my perception. I can influence perhaps communicating with another person that'll help me understand. And then you go ahead and you did what you could control. You went ahead and influenced. Now, guess what? You got to let go.
Right. After you, yeah.
Yeah. Let's not hit your head against the wall. You did what you could do. It's the bumper sticker, let go, let God. I mean, you have to trust a process. Right.
So if I may interrupt you again, Carol Ritz, certified professional speaker on leadership and change. What I just want to say, the idea of the Serenity Prayer, people say, they may ignore it because, that's associated with AA. I think the Serenity Prayer is the main root of all stress management, and which is what you're talking about. But I just want to underscore it as the Serenity Prayer. Serenity to accept what I can't change, courage to change what I can, and of course the wisdom to know the difference. And I'm just thinking, as you're talking, I'm thinking about Mandela, who said, and there was going to be a race war in South Africa. The white apartheid people had actually gathered 100,000 militia. And then, of course, the South Africans also were looking to fight. And he came out and he said, no violence, vote. No violence, vote. Mm-hmm. And he kept emphasizing that. And of course, he was elected president, and he really saved. He saved a tremendous amount of bloodshed on the part of both whites and blacks. Mm-hmm. So just to give him credit for that, when you talked about voting, yeah,
yes, do what you can. Make sure you're doing your part.
Right.
But beyond that, there's a possibility of letting so much of the outside noise affect you. Maybe you need to shut off the television. Maybe notice where it's coming from and remove yourself from that, because we really have to look inward and say, what can I do? And I think about, the monks and the nuns and that. I mean, they lived through a lot of, wars and trauma, but they have that ability to create silence.
Yes.
In their world, so that they can look inward and then draw on some true strength.
So I so agree, Carol Ritz, RITZ. So people say limit watching the news. And I have to say that every morning I wake up and I say, oh my God, what happened last night?
Exactly.
Because the change is so volatile, it's so instant. And I think the other side of that, when you say limit your outside noise, the other side of that is that knowledge is power. And people want to feel a master of their fate. So therefore, the more they know, the better equipped they are to deal. And I do think that there is a seesaw between the two. What's your take on that?
Yeah, what I see is if you're going to, listen to the news, just don't jump in with both feet. Keep one foot solid in your values, that which you were raised with, your own common sense, your principles, and then put the other one out there to pull in the new, because you do want to be learning. I think it was Henry Ford said that when you stop learning, even if you're 20, 30 years old, you're old.
I know. And Henry Ford was also a racist. But that's another story.
Big other story.
Yeah, but the idea of absolutely actively learning. Absolutely.
Yes. So make sure you keep, no matter what changes, your values tend not to change. So hold on to the values that have worked for you, that the positive influences in your life. Run, don't walk from the negative influences. Acknowledge your own accomplishments as you gain new information.
Okay. And I will say, when you said it's interesting, your values don't change. I've been a part of the values clarification and the values realization movement. And, we look at inherited values, what we inhale from our parents. Mommy and daddy were prejudiced, therefore I'm prejudiced, to a freely chosen values based upon awareness of alternatives. And values are based upon beliefs. And going back to what you said earlier about experiential knowledge rather than just on pages, the values that we espouse that are healthy are based upon our own experiences rather than someone told us, like that song from South Pacific, you've got to be carefully taught to hate. So I would hope that people can change the values they have that are based upon false beliefs.
Their perceptions.
Right.
Our perceptions definitely change.
Yes.
Our perceptions definitely change, only because you didn't know. I mean, if you had asked me growing up, what do you think of Italy? I would have said, oh, it's a strange country. They speak another language. I don't even understand their money. And now, after 14 trips to Italy, you ask me, what do you think of Italy? And it's like, oh, it's like home. I've got family there. I understand the language. I understand the money. So yes, you're right.
Yes.
Perceptions definitely will change, and then values from that as we learn.
And may I just add, Carol, that as perceptions change, one of the things that changes perception in the field of prejudice is firsthand knowledge, which is what you just said about Italy. Like people from different walks of life who meet in the army. Suddenly someone who they only knew as a stereotype is now a buddy that they would die for, they would protect at all costs. So when we keep people apart, whether it's apartheid or segregation, it's always this stereotypical stuff going on and unquestioned perceptions and beliefs. Yes.
Accepting difference is change.
Right.
And you'll go through the same steps.
Right.
I do want to invite people who are on Twitter. I do have over 300 original quotes on change, and they have to go to the Ritz.
Ha! I love that.
To the Ritz on Twitter, and they're welcome to use any of those 300 and some original quotes. I always recommend for people when they have a staff meeting, put one of those quotes at the top of the agenda so that they can keep the focus on change alive.
I love that. Let me just repeat that. You offer people so generously 300 quotes on change. That's quite a collection, my dear. It must have taken you quite a long time to do that.
In 2009, I was moving from Ohio to Florida, and somebody asked me if I could just keep a journal of, my experiences going through change and moving. So I figured I would, go up to about 100 or so. And then when I got there, I kept going. So probably closer to 400 now. To the Ritz. T-O to the Ritz.
Go to, T-O, right. No, not the number, right. On Twitter. Thank you very much, Carol Ritz. So I keep interrupting you. So we're looking.
Not at all. I love it.
How perceptions change. Right. Thank you. And accepting a difference is a change in and of itself. Am I getting you?
Accepting a different culture.
Right.
That also that's change.
Right.
I think you mentioned that as you get the experiences, you get enlightened. Right. We're talking about enlightenment here.
What a concept. Enlightenment. And that's why the ideal is that people travel and they see so-called foreign lands, which become familiar, and they really get that there are other ways of doing things. Mm-hmm. If one only experiences one's own culture is like water to a fish. A fish doesn't know what water is because it doesn't know what water isn't. Mm-hmm. And many, many, many people live and die in their own cultural confines. It's called being culture bound. Now, of course, America is a heterogeneous society, and you think we'd know better, that ideally, we do have diversity, and that's always been a strength of ours. So we do have the opportunity to experience other cultures, but I do think it's from afar. For instance, in Scandinavia, many Scandinavian countries, they do not allow private education. And the rich kids have to go to the public schools right next to the poor kids. Mm-hmm. And what happens there is that now the rich parents are spending a lot of money supporting public education rather than resenting it. And the poor kids and the rich kids are getting to know each other as human beings. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have in America this great divide, whether it's de facto segregation or segregation in general. And that's why we want to look to integrate, which of course we have a terrible history of racial integration. So, so
keep in mind that
about closing the gap, I think.
When you go when you're going through this constant change that we don't see an end, we have a tendency to revert back to a comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, even if we were more enlightened, we pull back, and so that we only want to hang out with people who look like us, act like us, talk like us. That is our comfort zone.
And because that comes from fear.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of regression now. Tremendous amount. And what I say to my clients and students and audiences, the idea is that the primitive brain doesn't like change, as you started the show with. And so what we do, we have to trick the primitive brain and let it catch up and do the change incrementally. But that's not the way society sometimes works. Like when you're trying to initiate social change, it can be gradual, or if it's so awful that you want to make a change, then you pass a law. And now suddenly Jim Crow laws are illegal and segregating buses are illegal. Mm-hmm. And then you have that abrupt, involuntary, random change that you're talking about. So so there is so much regression when people go to their default. They go to plan B. They go to their default mechanism to feel safe, which of course
is overwhelming.
Make them safe. Yes.
Yeah, you're overwhelmed.
Right. So what's the way out of all of this, Carol Ritz?
Well,
as it's talking about going inward.
Absolutely. I think you hit it right there.
Yeah.
As they say, when you point one finger at someone, the three fingers come back, which basically said it all stems from within. And if you don't have that ability to look inward, you're denying yourself growth. You're denying yourself peace. You're denying yourself calmness and understanding and enlightenment, because you'll go from pointing one direction to pointing to another, and it never ends because it's not outside. Yeah. It is outside, but it's not. But that's not where your control is.
Yeah. So what you're saying, Carol Ritz, I have practiced, thank goodness. Mm-hmm. And when we first were in lockdown, it was a jolt. It was my whole life changed. And it was a hard jolt in many ways. It was disorienting. I'm not technically oriented, so just having to adjust to Zoom to have contact with people was very hard for me. But I accepted that. I accepted that the nature of change is disorienting. I kept grounding. I kept feeling my feet on the floor. I kept going into my body and centering myself and saying to my body, because my body, the primitive brain thinks everything is a threat. So, you are safe, you are safe. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, looking at what I could change. And then, as you said, as you opened the show, the idea of what are the positive changes here? What are we gaining? Not only what have we lost, mm-hmm. what are we gaining? And
create a new schedule.
Sorry, what was that?
Creatures of habits. So we are creatures of habits. So we do have to create a new schedule. Yes. And it does not seem that exciting that you go for a walk for an hour, but that is your schedule. And that gives you a sense of comfort. And then you may not be doing the joy of the wedding, but what are some new joys? That you have power over? In my case, I remember how a puppy kept me so happy years ago. And so I got to looking at photos at puppies, and then it ended up seriously. Really, I mean, the spirits just put this one in my hand. That's all there is to it. I still can't believe it. So, you seek new joys, because you can't pout about I didn't go to Europe or I didn't go to the graduation.
Yes.
None of us did, So you see what new things will make you happy.
And we do have to close. And the good news for everyone is that Carol Ritz is coming back next week. This is a 2-part series. So if you really, really, really enjoyed this show, which I think you did, tune in next week. And we'll talk more about dealing with change in a positive way. When you say don't pout, Carol, I think there is room for grieving. Here I am, a social psychologist, therapist, mm-hmm. and I do want to put in a vote for the right to grieve as well. And we can talk about that or anything else you want to next week, my dear.
Look forward to it.
Yeah, so this is Dr. Duffy Spencer interviewing Carol Ritz, certified speaking professional on leadership and change. And if you're interested in the 300 quotes on change that she so generously offers, go to her Twitter account, TO The Ritz. This is Dr. Duffy Spencer saying goodbye for now and wishing you great relationships.